So let's talk about that ending because I don't know about you, but I actually had chills when Betsy screamed. Did we just watch a beloved Weatherfield resident finally lose their soul in the shadows of that scaffolding? It feels like Coronation Street didn't just kill off a villain on Friday, May 1st. It feels like they opened a door to something much darker that we're only just starting to understand. Was this death really just a tragic accident? Or are we looking at an act of street justice that's going to haunt the cobbles for years? The thing is, Theo Silverton wasn't just a bad guy. He was a predator who spent months systematically dismantling Todd Grimshaw's life, and his death at the bottom of the builder's yard scaffolding has changed absolutely everything. Well, think about it. We've been through Murder Week, where the show kept repeating the same day from different points of view, and every single time, the tension just got higher. We saw Theo, Jody, Carl, Megan, and Maggie all at risk, but in the end, it was the abuser who didn't make it out alive. But here's my take. The show isn't presenting this as a win for Todd. In fact, if you look at how Todd looked during those final chases, exhausted, cornered, and completely drained, it's clear he's running from months of trauma, not just a person. He didn't want Theo dead. He wanted him in prison, and now that chance for real legal justice is gone forever. The funny thing is, the police are already swarming the builder's yard, and Detective Kit Green seems to have a very specific idea of what happened. He's telling Gary Windass that they're pretty sure Theo was struck by some kind of metal object. Now, let's be real for a second. Gary built that scaffolding. The yard is literally full of metal poles. When Kit says, "You seem to have a few lying around," he's not just making small talk. He's laying a trap. And Gary's reaction? He gets nervous immediately. I think Gary is operating on a primitive instinct to protect his own, but he's forgotten that in 2026, you can't just bury your problems under a pile of scaffolding anymore. Can we just pause and talk about Gary for a minute? We know he was furious with Theo for what he did to Todd. He even went as far as smashing up Theo's van earlier that week. But it's the deleted CCTV footage from the yard that really smells fishy. If you're innocent, why are you scrubbing the tapes? It feels like Gary is trying to be the self-appointed guardian of the cobbles again, which is a role born from his own past sins. He wants to be the hero, but his methods are always villainous. In my opinion, Gary's arrogance is going to be his downfall because he's involving Maria in a lie that could literally send her to prison. Speaking of Maria, what was she thinking? She actually told the police that she and Gary were having sex at the time of the murder just to give him an alibi. It was a smart move in the moment, I guess, but then we get that bombshell revelation about the selfie. Sally and Tim took a photo at 10:02 p.m., and there's Gary, clear as day, in the background near Dove's shop. The timestamp doesn't lie, and now Maria knows her husband wasn't where he said he was. You could see the realization hitting her. She's tied herself to a sinking ship. This reframes their whole marriage as a hostage situation where she's a hostage to her own loyalty. Why does she keep doing this for him? It feels like a total waste of how much she's grown as a character. Then we have George Shuttleworth, our local undertaker, who usually deals with death with so much respect and dignity. But now, he's the first one in handcuffs. Christina Boyd found a bloody jumper in the laundry basket at number 11, and instead of calling the police, she tried to hide it. That was such a panicked, foolish move. George is a man of tradition and order, but seeing Todd being terrorized by Theo clearly broke something inside him. He claims he was acting in self-defense and that they only locked Theo in a bedroom, but Detective Swain isn't buying it. She sees the inconsistencies in his story, and honestly, so do I. I actually feel for George, though. He loves Todd like a son, and watching Theo push Todd to the point of holding a knife must have been a dormant volcano moment for him. The irony is just too much. The man who prepares bodies for the afterlife might have actually created one this time. If George did it, it wasn't a calculated murder. It was a psychological break from a man who couldn't stand to see a good world be so unfair anymore. But will he stay loyal to the truth? Or will the pressure of being a suspect turn him into someone we don't recognize? And then there's Summer Spellman. Our perfect student is now the primary target of a setup, and it's coming from inside her own house. Kit found her journal, and apparently, the entries are disturbing. What was she writing? Was she planning to kill Theo? Or was she just venting the anger of a young woman who's tired of seeing the adults in her life get hurt? Christina Boyd is literally throwing Summer under the bus to save her own skin, and that is easily the lowest move we've seen on the street in years. Christina has her own secret about that night, and she's using Summer as a human shield to keep the heat off herself. Is Summer even capable of it? James Cartwright, who plays Theo, mentioned that she could have hit him with a can of beans. It sounds ridiculous, but he also teased that it's not who you think it is. If Summer did it, she's likely in a state of total shock, which would explain why she's so desperate to get to America. In my opinion, her travel plans are going to be seen by the police as an attempt to flee, and her life is about to become a very long, very painful nightmare. She's protesting her innocence, but with George and Christina pointing the finger at her, who is going to believe her? But wait, we have to talk about the Sam Blakeman theory that's blowing up on Reddit. Have you noticed how he's been having these intense hallucinations and fighting with people who aren't there? He's been seeing Will, and he's clearly struggling with his mental health. Some fans think he might have been up on that scaffolding hiding from a monster and accidentally knocked Theo off. The thought of Sam being involved is just devastating because he's a child who has already seen way too much death. If he's the killer, this isn't a whodunit anymore. It's a tragedy about how the violence on the street is poisoning the next generation. I'm torn on this one. Part of me thinks it would be a bit of a taking the piss twist, as one fan put it, because Sam is so small. But another part of me sees the poetic horror in it. Sam's mind is creating monsters to explain his fear, and if Theo appeared in the middle of a psychotic episode, Sam might have just reacted. It would force everyone on the cobbles to look in the mirror and realize that their drama has real, physical consequences for the kids watching from the sidelines. Would the show really go that dark? They've been pretty radical lately, so I wouldn't put it past them that we also can't ignore the clues about the metal object again. Kit Green specifically took scaffolding poles back to the station. But some viewers are wondering if that's a massive red herring. What about the sledgehammer Gary used on the van? Or even that can of beans joke from the actor? In Weatherfield, the most mundane objects often become the most murderous weapons, and I think the police are looking for something big when they should be looking for something personal. Whoever held that weapon didn't just want to hurt Theo, they wanted him to stop existing. It was an explosion of repressed emotion. So, where does this leave Todd? Producer Kate Brooks said the next chapter is about Todd rebuilding his life. But how do you do that when you're a murder suspect? He's traumatized and grieving a version of himself that Theo destroyed. Even if he didn't pull the trigger or push the pull, he's carrying the guilt of wanting it to happen. I disagree with anyone who says this is justice for Todd, because now he has to live with the fact that someone he loves might have become a killer just to save him. That's a heavy burden for anyone to carry, let alone someone who's already been through months of horrific abuse. And let's look at the detectives for a second. DS Lisa Swain and DC Kit Green are like the scalpel and the sledgehammer. Swain is cold and looks down her nose at everyone, probably because she's tired of being the one who locks up the wrong people. But Kit? He's playing a much smarter game. He's acting all casual with Gary, letting him think they're just chatting, but then he drops the line. Is that a confession? He's testing Gary's emotional volatility, and I think he already knows more than he's letting on. Kit Green is definitely the one to watch in the coming weeks. So, what happens next? The reveal isn't coming until late June or July, so we have a lot of agonizing weeks ahead of us. Kate Brooks teased that the story diverts into a completely new kind of story territory, which makes me think there's a second twist coming. Is there another death on the horizon? Could a suspect who knows too much be silenced before the truth comes out? Whatever the case, the community that was supposed to rally around Todd is currently tearing itself apart to stay out of handcuffs. It's a total breakdown of trust. Maria is lying to the police, Christina is hiding secrets, and Gary is deleting evidence. Every time someone tries to protect someone else, they're actually just handing the police more ammunition. In my opinion, the scaffolding is the perfect metaphor for what's happening right now. It's a shaky structure built on lies, and Theo's body falling through it was just the first sign that the whole thing is about to collapse. The truth is going to hit the pavement eventually, and I don't think anyone is ready for the impact. I'm really curious to hear what you think about all this. Who is your top suspect right now? Do you think Gary is too obvious, Or is he exactly the kind of person who would go too far for justice? And what about Summer? Do you think she's being framed by Christina, or could she actually be the one who snapped? Drop a comment below because I love reading your theories, and some of you are better detectives than Kit Green. If you want to stay in the loop with every single update and analysis as we head toward the July reveal, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. We're going to be dissecting every episode, every flashback, and every disturbing journal entry until we find out who actually killed Theo Silverton. Thanks for hanging out and talking Corey with me. I'll see you in the next one. Did you ever think we'd see the day when Weatherfield finally pushed back against a predator like Theo Silverton? I don't know about you, but those final moments of Murder Week on Friday, May 1st, felt like the air had been sucked out of the entire street. We spent days watching the same 24 hours repeat from different angles, seeing 5 potential victims all teetering on the edge of a cliff. But in the end, it was the abuser who didn't make it out alive. Theo Silverton was found dead, lying at the bottom of the builder's yard scaffolding, and honestly, the shockwaves are only just starting to hit. Was this really just a terrible accident, or did someone on the cobbles decide to play judge, jury, and executioner? Think about the psychological toll this has taken on Todd Grimshaw. He spent months trapped in a nightmare with Theo, subjected to horrific abuse that most of his friends didn't even see until it was almost too late. The show gave us a terrifying look at Theo's mindset during that last meal seen on Monday, April 27th. He wasn't just physically threatening Todd, he was trying to colonize his mind, even pushing Todd to use a knife, so he could drag him down into a world of guilt. It makes me wonder, when you push someone that far into a corner, can you really be surprised when the situation ends in a body at the bottom of some scaffolding? The funny thing is, the investigation is already getting messy. We've got Detective Kit Green showing up at the builder's yard, and he's not just looking for a witness, he's looking for a weapon. He told Gary Windass that the police are pretty sure Theo was struck by some kind of metal object before he died. Now, let's be real for a second. The builder's yard is literally made of metal. When Kit pointed at the scaffolding poles and said, "You seem to have a few lying around," he was basically painting a target on Gary's back. Does that feel like a subtle hint to you? Or is Kit just being his usual cynical self? Well, think about it from Gary's perspective. We know he was absolutely fuming with Theo for what he did to Todd. Gary even took a sledgehammer to Theo's van earlier that week. In my opinion, Gary Windass has always had this savior complex where he thinks he's the only one who can truly protect the street, but that usually means he ends up breaking the law to do it. He's already under fire for deleting the CCTV footage from the yard. If you're innocent, why are you scrubbing the tapes? It feels like Gary is trying to hide his own tracks, or maybe he's hiding someone else's. And can we talk about Maria for a minute? She actually went to the police station and told them she and Gary were having sex at the exact time Theo was killed. I mean, talk about a high-stakes lie. But the universe has a funny way of catching up with you in Weatherfield. Sally and Tim took a selfie at 10:02 p.m. that night. And guess who is standing right there in the background near Dove's shop? It's scary. Maria's alibi just went up in smoke, and now she's realized her husband wasn't where he said he was. You have to ask yourself, is Gary lying because he's a killer, or is he lying because he was doing something else he shouldn't have been? Then we have George Shuttleworth, our local undertaker, who has somehow become the first person actually arrested for the murder. Christina Boyd found a bloody jumper in his laundry basket, which is pretty much the worst thing you can find during a police investigation. George claims he was just acting in self-defense when he and Todd locked Theo in a bedroom earlier that night. But Detective Swain, who, let's be honest, loves a good interrogation, already thinks his story has more holes than a piece of Swiss cheese. Why change your clothes if everything was above board? I actually feel a bit for George here. He loves Todd like a son, and he's seen the damage Theo did firsthand. But the psychological layer here is fascinating. George is a man who deals with death every day with so much respect, yet he's now facing the possibility that he caused one. Was it a moment of protective rage that went too far? The blood on that jumper is a mark of his lost innocence, whether he did the deed or not. Do you think George is a secret killer? Or is he just a good man who got caught in a terrible situation? And then there's Summer Spellman. This one really breaks my heart. She's supposed to be heading off to university in America, but now she's being dragged into a murder probe. Kit found her journal, and apparently, she's been writing some disturbing entries about Theo. Now, Summer is a perfectionist. She likes things to be orderly. Theo was a chaos bringer who was destroying her father figure, Todd. Could she have snapped? Even the actor who played Theo, James Cartwright, joked that she might have hit him with a can of beans. It sounds crazy, but in a whodunit like this, you can't rule anything out. The most disgusting part of the Summer story is Christina Boyd. She's actually pushing the idea that Summer is guilty just to keep the heat off herself. Christina has her own secret about that night. She was caught in a lie by the police, and now she's grassing on Summer to save her own skin. It's a total betrayal of trust. I mean, how can you look at a young girl you're supposed to care about and decide she's the perfect scapegoat? Does it make you wonder if Christina is actually the one we should be watching the most? We also have to look at the broader chaos on the street that night. Maggie and Megan were having a literal life and death standoff on a ledge. Ronnie was panicking with an unconscious Carl in his car and cleaning the seats with disinfectant. Jod was smashing up the Platt's house and attacking Sarah. It was a night of absolute madness where everyone had a reason to be angry. With so much violence happening at once, is it possible that Theo's death was almost inevitable? Let's dive into that Reddit theory about Sam Blakeman for a second, because it's honestly one of the most interesting ideas I've seen. We know Sam has been struggling with hallucinations and psychotic episodes lately. He was found crying on the floor on the night the body was discovered. Some fans think he might have been up on the scaffolding hiding from a ghost and accidentally caused Theo to fall. I know some people think it's unlikely because Sam is so small, but wouldn't that be the ultimate twist? A child caught in a tragedy because the adults around him were too busy with their own drama. It really makes you think about the David and Goliath aspect of it all. Theo was aggressive and strong, but if someone like Sam was in the middle of a mental health crisis, things could have gone sideways very quickly. Whether he did it or just witnessed something horrific, Sam's silence is speaking volumes right now. Do you think the show would actually go that dark and make a child responsible for a death? Or is he just another victim of the environment Theo created? The investigation itself is fascinating to watch because Kit Green and Lisa Swain are such different types of cops. Kit is the one playing the friend to Gary, dropping lines about scaffolding poles just to see if Gary flinches. Swain is the one folding her arms and looking down her nose at everyone, just waiting for them to trip over their own lies. They are currently chasing a metal object, but we have to ask ourselves, what if the weapon is something totally unexpected? Some fans are even wondering if the sledgehammer Gary used on the van is the real murder weapon. It hasn't been confirmed yet, but that head wound on Theo was definitely caused by something heavy. Did I have to wonder about the poetic justice of the weapon being a scaffolding pole? Theo is trying to build a new life for himself by tearing down Todd's. Using the very thing meant for construction to destroy him is a pretty heavy metaphor. Gary built that scaffolding, George changed his jumper near it, and Summer was one of the last people to see Theo near it. It's like the scaffolding is the center of the spiderweb, and everyone we love is caught in the silk. The thing is, even though Theo is gone, the trauma he left behind is still very much alive. Todd is now trying to rebuild his life, as producer Kate Brooks put it, but he's doing it while struggling with the fact that he might have killed the man, or that someone he loves did it for him. That's not a fresh start. That's a new kind of prison. He's grieving the life he lost while facing the suspicion of the entire community. How do you find trust in people again when your first suspect is your own family?